Today I want to talk about Python functions, both using them and creating them, how to get information into a function and back out of a function. So the first thing I want to look at is using functions that already exist. Now we've already done some of this, whether you realized it or not. For example, there's a print function, so that when I ask it to print something, it knows what to do, and it puts that out in our output area in our console. Okay, so print is an example of a function. And it's one that already exists in Python so that we can use it. And there's many others like that, like turning something from an integer into a string or a string into an integer. That's also a function. There's also sets of other functions that we can bring into our program in order to use. For example, when we were doing our number guesser program, we used the random library to randomly generate a number. And the way we had to do that was first we had to let Python know that we wanted to use the, cannot speak and type at the same time, obviously. We wanted to use the random library. And so to do that, you type import and the name of the library you want to use. So I went and pulled up the random library on another page so that we can take a look at it. You can always go look at the source code. It's available on GitHub, but this one, docs.python.org, is a really good list of kind of the things available. So once we've imported random, we can use all of the functions available in this library. For example, the one we used previously was here, random.randint AB. So what this text will show you is how to access the function, in this case, .randint, and then in parentheses, the two parameters, the two things that we want it to operate on, and then a description of what that function does. So here it returns a random integer that is greater than or equal to the first parameter, less than or equal to the second parameter. Okay, so if we go back here, now that we've imported random, we could set up a variable, my int, and we could say that I want to use the random library, I want to use the randint function, and I want somewhere between 0 and 10, like we did with our number guesser. And then I want to print my int. And we'll go ahead and run this. It's the number 5, 3, 6, 6, 4. Okay, so each time I run this, it is running this function and saving that result as a variable, and then I'm printing it out. If I change these parameters, and now I'm going to go from 10 to 100. Oops, but I need my parentheses. Now I'm going to get random integers between 10 and 100. There we go. So what happens if we don't use a function correctly? What if I leave a parenthesis off the end? We're going to get an error. Bad input. It doesn't know what to do. It's expecting this parenthesis to close so that it can move on. Okay, let's put that back. What if I only give it one parameter? Just the number 10. Also bad. Now it will tell you here, randint takes exactly 2 arguments, and only one was given. So same thing, if I give it 3, it says, hey, too much. It takes exactly 2 arguments, and 3 were given. So it's going to insist that we only give it the right amount, and then it will run nicely again. Okay. Similarly, there's a math library that is often very helpful. And so in order to use the math library, I would need to import math. Excuse me. And now there's a whole host of functions in the math category that are very useful in a lot of different programs. So ceiling, or floor, or exponents, sum, greatest common divisor. If it's been a little while since you had that in math class, you're having trouble remembering how to find a greatest common divisor, maybe that one would be useful for you. Square roots, those are in here. Remainders, powers and logs, the trigonometric functions, those are in here. Lots of good stuff. And constants, right? So if, for example, you wanted to use exactly pi, that's a good example. Let's do that one. So I'm going to do some circle calculations. And I'm going to say this first one is close to a circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's see, my radius, or just R for my radius, is going to be 5. And let's calculate the circumference. So the circumference, if you remember, is 2 pi r. So we're going to do 2 times something that we're going to put in for pi times r. So r, we just said, was 5. Down in here, maybe you remember from math class that 3.14 is pretty close to pi. It's the first few digits. And sometimes that's what we use kind of in our shorthand. So I'm going to do some kind of formatting here. I want to turn my number into a string so that I can print it out. And yeah, so let's see how we're doing. Oh, what did I do wrong? Ha, that is not how you do a comment in Python. I've been switching languages too much recently. Okay, so our circumference, pretty close, is 3.14 because we did 2, right? And our radius is 5. If we go change our radius, we'll get a different number. But that is what I want to do for that one. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to call this one closer. And so this time, instead of 3.14, I'm going to use math.pi, which is going to give us a lot more significant digits, right? A lot more digits after our decimal place. Okay, so we go math.pi, and that should be it. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so we can see that now we have a lot more information. And so here, maybe maybe this is a very big circle, 695, I don't know. And if we run, we can see that now as our numbers get bigger, that more precision to the math.pi starts changing your result. So right here, you can see that the close is 4,364.6, but closer, using more digits of pi, 4,366.8. So you can see we're off by more than 2 now, just as this number gets bigger. And as it gets even bigger, that will be more drastic. So this one is off by, oh goodness, 200,000. So it starts getting pretty big. So being able to use a really exact number like that might be helpful. Okay, I'm going to delete all of that. So that was importing libraries in order to use existing functions. And it's a really helpful thing to know how to do. And there is a lot available in Python. Look at all this stuff, so much stuff. So it's very possible that you will find something that you want to do already exists, and you can import a function to get you started. Okay, but what about making our own functions? We talked a little bit about that already, so I'm just going to set up a really basic function, which starts with def, define, and then I have to have a name for a function, so it will be my function, because I don't know what it's going to do yet. Some parentheses, a colon, and then on new line indented, this is going to do whatever it is I want this function to do. In this case, I'm going to start with just having it print hi. Okay, so what's going to happen when I hit run code over here? Anybody remember? Nothing. You can hit run code as many times as you want. It is running successfully, you can see, but nothing is happening because I have set up a function, but I am not using the function. In order for it to actually show the result, I need to call my function. So I need to tell it to execute that thing. So here I've asked it to execute one time, so I get one hi. If I were to do this more times, each time I call it, it will execute again. Okay, so that's number one, is knowing the difference between making a function and calling a function. Making a function, you're just setting up the rule for how it works. Calling the function is when you actually get some action out of it. Okay, this currently is printing within the function. One thing that you can instead have a function do is return something. So in this case, I will still have it return the word hi. So what do you think is going to happen now when I hit run? So this function exists, it was called, but we don't see anything on the screen. Well, that's because I took my print away. So you would have two options for how to print out that hi now. One would be to print whatever you get back from the my function. And now there's the hi. Another option would be to set up a variable to hold whatever the result from your function is, and then print out that result. So this is kind of a two-step. First, find out what the result is, and then print it out. But you can see it looks just the same. So why would you do one or the other? Well, if all you want to do with the result is just show it on the screen, then just doing the print and then my function in here is a great way to go. If instead you want to use the result of your function again or somewhere else, saving it into a variable can be a really good idea because it lets you use that value somewhere else later down the line. All right, so now I'm going to look at passing parameters or passing arguments. So this just means when we want to, for example, in the randint function, it took two arguments, a beginning and an ending to the range that it was going to look at. Maybe we want our functions to be able to take in some information too. So I'm going to change my function here and say it's going to take in, you can name this anything you want. My function is going to take in argument 1. Super boring. And then for now, it's just going to spit it back out. So whatever I give this function, it will return. This is a really, really boring function, but it's a good place to start. So now what will happen if this function is expecting an argument, but when I call it, I don't give it one? An error, right? So this is just like the ones we were just looking at. It takes exactly one argument, but none are given. That's going to cause a problem. So let's give it an argument. We can send it the word hi, and all it's going to do is return it right back out. There it is. So here I said, let result go give hi to the function. The function hands it right back, saves it in result, and that's what I printed out on the screen. Okay, that's a really boring function. Let's do this instead. So if you remember from the lessons about strings, if you do kind of multiplication on strings, it repeats them. See that? So now I only handed it one hi, and it sent back 2. So I got 2 out here. If I wanted 5, I could have it send back 5. You could also have it use 2 arguments now. So now when I give it hi and a number like 7, I'll put spaces after hi so you can see it a little better. So now my function takes 2 arguments. In this case, I'm going to send it a word and then a number. And it's going to kind of multiply those together, and that's what's going to be saved to result, and that's what will be printed out. So if I send hi and the number 7, we get 7 highs. Okay? Whatever you name them here, that's what needs to match here. It does not need to match what you're sending. Okay, so this could be a variable. Variable hi is the word hi, and then I could send this a variable called var hi. And this is going to work just the same. This could be a number, or it could also be a number variable. I'll make it 5. So there's increasing complexity going on right here, right? So I have this variable, and I have this variable that's a number. I am sending those variables into this function. The names do not match. Okay, so the variable that I'm sending in matches what goes into the function, but the function recognizes it just as this first argument, and whatever it is, it's going to go here. And this number, and whatever it is going to go here. All right, let's see. Is there anything else we want to cover today? This is a good place to pause maybe, and I encourage you to explore making your functions take arguments and use those arguments. I also highly encourage you to explore the Python libraries. There's a lot that Python can do, and it can make your programs very strong and very capable with frankly minimal input of yours. So I would like that to be the thing that you want to take away from this today, is exploring some Python libraries on your own. There's a link on Canvas to the page I just showed you, and exploring setting your functions up to take and use arguments and return arguments instead of maybe just print